Hello once again there people, we are once again going to be looking through one of Ash Sarkar's god-awful takes. This is going to be a classic case of talking about immigration, or as she would call them, refugees. However, we are going to be taking her points apart one by one, because as usual she has absolutely no fundamental idea of what she is talking about. So let's get into it.
You might have heard from Nigel Farage and his merry band of reactionary...
Sorry, I've had to stop this before she even gets to her first point. Do you seriously have a sticker of someone punching Pepe the Frog on your laptop? Are you that worried about internet shitlords? What the hell? I don't even think Nigel Farage has an opinion on Pepe the Frog. This makes me want to take you less and less seriously. Anyway, we're going to have to, so carry on.
Is that the country is in grave peril. No, not from that.
Well, at least we can agree on something.
It's from migrants crossing the channel in rubber dinghies you'd consider too flimsy for pootling around Shadwell Basin, let alone navigating the world's busiest shipping channel while carrying women and children.
I don't know much about dinghies, but they look fine to me. Bit overcrowded. But after all, if you're a human trafficker and breaking laws already, why would you care about those people's safety, especially when they've probably already paid you? And also, why are they so desperate to escape France? What the hell's going on in France that makes them want to leave it so badly?
It is pretty dangerous, just the number of people on board that boat. Let me just see. Are you okay? Are you alright?
They're Syrians who fled a country torn apart by civil war, bailing out a tiny boat with a plastic bucket. How do you think they're getting along, Simon?
Well, to be fair, Ash, they are giving thumbs up to each other. That's a pretty universal way of communicating that they're doing alright. And also, how do you know that they're Syrian? Are you assuming here, little Miss Sarkar, that because they are brown people in a rubber dinghy, they must be from a war-torn country of Syria? You do realise they could be from anywhere, right? And since they could be from anywhere, they aren't necessarily available for refugee status. This is why we should have, and generally do, although it's not very good, but it's why we have processes in place to make sure that we know who's coming in the country and we know if we can actually put them up as refugees. Because if not, then guess what, Ash? They need to go away. Because they have broken... Well, they've broken the basic law of coming into the country illegally, and odds are they've broken more than that law, so we're basically letting in an active criminal into the country, and doing that is just silly, because they're going to think they can get away with anything. And one final thing, Ash, if you're going to say there are women and children fleeing a war, why would you not use footage where there's actually women and children in the dinghy? I mean, just quickly going through this footage now again, where are the women and children on that dinghy? At least you can see them using a bucket to bail out water, fair enough there. But there's no women and children, Ash. Get your shit together.
In contrast to the government's hostile environment for migrants, the media has fostered a much more hospitable one when it comes to super dumb opinions about migration.
How childish are you trying to sound here? Trying to conflate a government policy on immigration with people who turn up on national TV and who is allowed to speak, etc. They are two completely different things. And then basically just saying opinions I don't like are super dumb. It's a very childish way to get around the argument, I have to say. And I'm not saying that I've not insulted people before or said someone's had a stupid opinion, but I'll at least go into it more than Ash Sarkar is about to do.
I'd go down the Trump route. Why not have a nice spiky barbed wire fence somewhere down the channel, very rubber dinghy unfriendly?
Even there, you don't let Andrew Wright have a counterpoint. You're just cutting people off and saying these opinions are stupid. Okay, well, you're going to have to do more than just show me a clip of that opinion. Because honestly, I see that opinion and I think, you know, why not put a deterrent up to stop and curb illegal immigration? And so far, since you've just cut Andrew Wright off, there's no counterpoint to that. So you're actually doing what you say the media do. Well done.
Instead of Border Force going out and bringing them in like a free taxi service, the Border Force goes out to mid-channel and turns everyone round they come across.
No one getting on a dinghy in France is desperate.
Again, two more opinions that it's like, oh, these are super dumb. Why is it dumb, Ash, to turn people around back to France when they have no legal right to cross the channel, which are our waters, by the way, and come into Britain? And what is dumb about saying no one getting on a dinghy in France is desperate? Obviously, that is true. They are so far away from their wars in Syria, as you put it, that they are as safe as they could possibly be. Crossing over the channel to our side of the channel is not going to help them any more than staying in France, I'm afraid.
Completely close the borders because it's got to the stage now is there's no education, schooling, infrastructure. It's enough. We are sinking.
Ash, you all right?
I'll be fine, just waiting for the tramadol to kick in.
Anyone convinced by Ash's arguments yet? I mean, she didn't even splice together hypocritical points. These were all really consistent points, and odds are there were things to expand on there. I mean, even out of context, they don't look that bad. Why can't we protect our borders, Ash? That's all every single one of them was asking.
The problem with the establishment media's macabre and content-free coverage of migrants crossing the channel is that little to no attempt is made to counter much of the bollocks which has become lodged in the deepest recesses of the nation's psyche.
Oh my god, Ash, you are a meme. You cut off Andrew Wright's counterpoint to the woman that was on the Morning View before, and I think you cut that off because he probably does offer a counter-narrative. But you cut it off and are trying to say, oh, the mainstream media doesn't counter them. But I can't be bothered checking because, honestly, I'm putting about as much effort in this video as you ever do in anything. But moving on as well, you think it's macabre and content-free? You think it's content-free literally showing videos of people in dinghies that we don't know whether they're refugees or illegal immigrants, but, you know, let's be fair. I know which one I think they are, but it doesn't matter either way, because the mainstream media is generally calling them migrants. Not refugees from Syria or illegal migrants outright, because technically we don't actually know what they are yet. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the way the media should work. Try and give an unbiased perspective on what is going on. And a lot of the time the media don't seem to do that, though to be fair to them on this case, they're not awful when it comes to this particular news story, at least compared to other things I've seen. So when you say the mainstream media doesn't counter the right-wing narrative, what you mean to say is I want them to have my personal left-wing narrative instead of being completely unbiased and showing the facts as they are. Which even then they don't do and they still swing left-wing, but anyway. We will carry on with your points, Ash.
Because there's no context, images of brown men in small boats are, no pun intended, floating signifiers. They're seen through the lens of much of the prejudiced, dishonest and alarming coverage which you find in right-wing print and political media.
And you're seriously trying to tell me that you saying they're definitely Syrian refugees isn't at all being unbiased? I mean, have a go at the right wing for that lenses all you want. I even agree that some of them do have lenses where they see specific issues through certain lenses and come to their conclusions without taking in all the facts. But I'm not going to lie, I have never ever seen anyone on the mainstream right be as dishonest and ignore blatant facts as much as you. I'm still yet to see a dinghy that has more women and children than men on it. That's all I'm saying.
Journalists are failing in their duty to separate fact from popular feeling.
I would agree, but unfortunately we have different definitions of what this popular feeling is, although I wouldn't actually call what their bias is popular at all. Hence mainstream media is becoming more and more unpopular. But then you get Nigel Farage's videos on Twitter getting 5 million views. And I know this is going to be hard to believe, but they're not actually trying to cover the migrant crisis to make Nigel Farage happy. They're doing it because Nigel Farage has been doing this since May, and they actually want to counter his narrative. Because believe it or not, Ash, the BBC is actually on your side. You're just too stupid to realise and too blatant with exactly what you want that they can't fully get behind you. And that's probably because you're about as Machiavellian as a packet of crisps.
Now, a reporter might say that their job is just to neutrally convey what's going on by finding an event and physically pointing at it.
Yes, that is exactly what their job should be. My issue is that that is not how they act in their job. Your issue, Ash, isn't that they don't do that. It is that they are not left-wing enough for you. But at this point, I'm pretty sure Stalin wouldn't be left-wing enough for you, so who cares?
But by the time a BBC News or Sky reporter has even put on their life jacket, the plight of migrants at sea has already been reduced to far-right talking points determined by Nigel Farage and given governmental legitimacy by Priti Patel.
Yeah, that's probably because Nigel Farage is a better journalist than the journalists. Go through his Twitter feed and you'll find that he's been talking about this stuff for about 3 months. I mean, I can use that full clip that you just showed on screen to also show you why you are a terrible journalist and political commentator.
Where are you from? You okay? Where have you come from?
Yes, there are multiple countries there. There was Iran and Afghanistan, I heard, probably a few others, but it was very muffled. So Ash saying before that these are Syrian refugees falls right through the bloody floor, with clips that she has put in her own video. Oh, but she just cuts that bit off because She doesn't give a shit about context. I'll put this clip in of Sky News proving my point wrong and think nothing of it. Like, this is what I mean. Machiavellian as a packet of crisps. No wonder Nigel Farage is doing better than you. Jesus Christ.
Journalists have a responsibility to debunk the myths which will inevitably become attached to the images that they generate and distribute.
Yeah, it's quite hard to do that when the people they literally ask where they come from go against your narrative. So again, when you say, oh, they need to debunk these things with facts, yeah, they can't find the facts to actually debunk it, Ash. That's their issue. They at least understand that, whereas you're just a propagandist. But again, you're not very good with understanding how people and power work. So you're going to be a bit screwed on that front, I'm afraid. Which, thank God for that, because I couldn't be bothered with a Jeremy Corbyn as PM.
Myths like the UK is uniquely burdened with refugees because other countries are failing to take on their fair share.
I have literally heard nobody make that point. Generally people's points, and mine included in that, is that we let in 1 million immigrants every 3 years. If every 3 years your country adds 1 million on top of it when, you know, you're originally at about 60 million or something like that, maybe a bit less, you're going to have your country full of people from outside and they're not going to be able to integrate, which, by the way, I've gone through your awful takes on integration before, Ash. And you basically end up with enclaves in lots of places in Britain that are inherently not British. Lo and behold, that's exactly what we have. So yeah, believe it or not, that's to do with legal immigration alone. If we get a load of illegal immigrants in, they're probably going to try and get away with other crimes because they've already gotten away with a big one. So anyway, this point you're going to make, I mean, it's probably going to be wrong anyway, but it's also pointless because nobody made this point. In short, Ash, you have just strawmanned the right.
It's actually the opposite. Britain isn't even in the top 10 for refugee hosting countries. And in fact, only 2 countries in Europe, Germany and Turkey, for those of you who are interested.
Oh, bloody hell. I think like 5% of Turkey counts as European. I'm not being funny, but I don't call Turkey a European country. Because, alright, it's a transcontinental country. And even part of that's because they invaded a quarter of Cyprus. But I mean, if you're going to point out a country that is barely in Europe, and quite literally neighbours a lot of those countries that are sending out refugees, then I'm not going to take your point seriously. It's this whole leftist thing again of swaying statistics and swaying facts to try and make a narrative. I just care about getting to the truth, that's it. And fucking about with all this makes it very difficult and makes me not trust a damn word you say. Which, given all the evidence in this video so far, I think I've got a pretty good case to back.
And that's because 85% of people who are displaced across borders choose to stay in countries neighbouring the one that they just left.
You say choose, but it is international law that you only have the right to get refugee status in a neighbouring country. And given that most wars are in developing countries, yeah, guess what? A lot of refugees are then going to go to their neighbouring countries, which are, guess what? Developing countries. So to say they choose to stay there, again, a bit disingenuous. They only have the right to stay there. Of course, that's until Angela Merkel said to a little girl, don't worry, I'll save 10 million refugees. Obviously, that's hyperbole, but you get my point.
We're not even that popular when you compare us to other European countries. Last year, the UK received 44,835 asylum applications.
Yeah, I'm not going to force you to listen to all that because I've had enough for a voice as well. But these are the stats they show on screen, and as far as I can tell, they are somewhat accurate. But you see, again, this is a statistical sleight of hand. She says, quote unquote, we're not that popular, comparing us to other European countries. Well, we're 5th highest. Now, I don't know about you, but 5th out of about 30... or however many European countries you can count. That's pretty bloody popular. I mean, yeah, we're not taking in as many as Germany, France, Spain or Greece, but I mean, 3 of those all promised to take in refugees, whereas we didn't. We said we were only going to take in children and women and make sure that they're only from Syria and other places that need to send out refugees. And yet, despite this, we're still the 5th most popular. And as we can tell from all these videos so far, and more to come, they're mostly men coming in. And I'm here demanding Priti Patel do something about it, while you're here making statistical sleight of hands to make it look like we need to do more. I also want to point out that every single one of these countries is currently having its own immigration crisis. It's almost like there's some sort of correlation here. I don't know.
Okay, but what about all that stuff about migrants coming over here just to live large off the benefits system and steal all our jobs?
Listen, I've applied for 100 jobs in the railway. 100 jobs. But these immigrants, they get all their tickets paid for, they get all their jobs.
Well, contrary to popular opinion, the fraction of migrants who do want to come to the UK aren't doing it because of our hugely generous benefit system.
I mean, I'm not being funny, Ash. We are going to get more into the economic side of this later. But it seems almost every week on Question Time there's someone with the same story. I can't get a job. I know that there are more migrants in my area. I know my migrants are getting benefits. And I know that these benefits come from my tax money. It seems every week there's something like that on Question Time. There's probably enough anecdotes now that you can make a whole study proving it correct. But either way, I think anecdotes are pretty shoddy things to base it on. But I'd love to hear your counterpoint to this, Ash.
Asylum seekers aren't even allowed to apply for permission to work in the UK unless they've been waiting on a response to their initial claim for 12 months.
Yeah, so you're doing that thing again. You're assuming they're asylum seekers? You're assuming that they haven't just broken the law to get in a country? Do you really think they're going to follow the rest of our laws? I mean, do you not remember there was a whole thing about sweatshops in Leicester the other week? There were all immigrants working there. They broke our laws and regulations all the bloody time, Ash. They don't care what they can and can't do. They will just work anyway, and they'll do it illegally for less pay because people running those businesses seem to be able to get away with it for a while, in Labour Health Council areas as well.
And many are entitled to just £37 a week to cover food, travel and other necessities. And I can absolutely guarantee you that nobody is risking their life or their child's life just to get a £5 a week and EastEnders on the telly.
So Ash, I've just got this up from the official government website because I want to go through what you actually get as an asylum seeker since I couldn't trust a word you said. So it turns out you'll get free housing. You'll be given somewhere to live if you need it. This could be a flat, house, hostel or a B&B. You cannot choose where you live. It's unlikely you'll get to live in London or South East England. Yeah, they just shove them all up north. We all have to deal with them. The page then goes through a few payment things. You can go through it yourself, but it's basically just the £37 like she said. Though even if you turn out not to be an asylum seeker, you still get 35 quid a week. And you also get extras if you're a new mother or pregnant and you have kids. Whatever, you get extra money for that. It's not much. It's like a £5 or £3, depending what it is. But it's still free money from my expense. But moving on from pure money, they also get free healthcare. They don't have to pay guff to use our NHS, probably because if we made them pay, that would be racist. And also, if you have a kid aged 5 to 17, you get free education. Is it any wonder how there are schools around Britain that are 90% non-native Brit? This is part of the reason that John Cleese said that London isn't an English city anymore. And there are many more you could say that about. Birmingham, for example, Leicester as well. But alas, here I am being called racist for pointing out that these cities are not English anymore because they look very different to how they looked just 50 years ago. So Ash, when you say you can guarantee that no one is crossing a channel dangerously for a £5 a week, you are correct. They're doing it for a free house or flat, they are doing it for free education for their kids, and they also get free money on top of that. Do you understand how easy life is with all those benefits? You don't have to worry about your housing, you don't have to worry about educating your kid, and you get free money. And guess who pays for it, Ash? People like me.
While Nigel Farage has been banging on about migrants being put up in 4-star hotels, which just means that there's hot food, private bathrooms and Wi-Fi.
Yes, they shouldn't just have any of that crap for getting in a little boat and coming across from France, especially when they have no legal right to do that. God, she makes it sound like that's just nothing. Like, do you understand? Free Wi-Fi, free food, free beds, free toilets, showers and baths. Does she realise that's more than I get offered despite being a citizen of this country, born and bred in this country? That is more than I get. All I seem to do, Ash, is pay into it. I'm paying into it for what? Oh, to give these people, oh, they just get free Wi-Fi. Fuck you, Ash. Fuck's sake.
Asylum seekers have actually been complaining about being assigned to accommodation which is rat-infested and unfit for human habitation.
Anecdotes again. 2 of those articles were from Glasgow and they were both about the same place. One was about London and it genuinely seemed like terrible conditions, but it was only in one particular flat. And finally she had this. It was some bullshit about racist graffiti on Derby Asylum Seeker building. So this accommodation was actually okay. It was just some dickhead spray painting a swastika on the side saying go home. So really she has two examples of this, while Nigel Farage has been going all around the south, proving his point constantly. Which one am I going to say is probably more typical?
The businesses responsible for this accommodation are often companies who've been awarded contracts worth billions by the government. So it's not actually the asylum seekers who are fleecing the system. It's corporations like G4S, Sarkar and Mins.
Yeah, asylum seekers and refugees and, illegal immigrants aren't fleecing the system by getting a load of free shit, are they? No, it's those evil corporations, of which you only have two examples, making these terrible living conditions for these people. They don't build anything for me. They have never been given a contract to house me up, which, just to be clear, I would be dead against anyway. But of course, the real enemy is the quote-unquote corporations and rich. Why? All they're doing is trying to provide a service, and it doesn't always go spectacularly to plan. Well, the idea of the market is that then they're not used anymore. But unfortunately, they just keep getting given contracts because they have a massive contract with the government. And if you can only find two anecdotes of them being terrible, then I'm actually going to assume they're pretty good. But no, Ash, try and spin this around to blame it on capitalism in some way, even though everything about this has been government policy and government-funded hostels, hotels, B&Bs and flats for people who we don't even know where they're from.
What commonly brings asylum seekers to the UK is speaking a shared language, having family here already, or the existence of community networks which can help support them as they try and build a life for themselves.
Oh, is that why they come over without travel documents? Because as this report says, thousands of deportations fail due to lack of papers. Now this is specifically from Germany. Last year, there were 65,000 people who lack travel documents, preventing them from being deported from Germany. Wow, it's like they purposely get rid of their documentation so they can play the system. I mean, it's not like we have evidence of, them doing anything bad. Oh, NGO admits teaching migrants how to trick EU border guards. A group that has helped over 15,000 migrants and refugees cross European borders have been caught on tape admitting to systematically training asylum seekers to exploit screening interviews by faking trauma and persecution. And undoubtedly they tell them to get rid of their documents too. Just stop assuming these people are honest, Ash. We can't know if they're honest until they have gone through a due process. And even in this due process they still try and be dishonest. We're unfortunately going to have to be harsher. You don't have travel documents. You don't have anything like that. You shouldn't even be allowed to stay in the country. Just do as the guys say. Turn them around, put them back to France. If they're caught in Dover on these dinghies, tell them to get back on. Do it armed if you have to. There has to be some sort of deterrent.
It's absolutely not the prospect of getting a complimentary shortbread Vicky at a Dover hotel.
Free housing, free education, free healthcare, free money. Yeah, I can't see myself trying to play a system for that.
Alright, so what if you accept that asylum seekers should be treated like human beings on principle, but you just think that the UK is too full to accept any more people?
Oh, this is going to be great.
According to Inside Housing and Shelter, 2% of English land area is used for golf courses, which is around the same amount of land area which is used for housing.
The fact you use Donald Trump as your imagery here is very telling. It's clear that this just comes from a place of hating the rich rather than loving the poor. George Orwell was correct when he said that the intelligentsia that are socialists have nothing but contempt for the poor, they just happen to hate the rich more. I mean, if you seriously expect people to give up golf courses, because you do realise it's not just rich people that play golf, but if you really expect people to give up one of the biggest hobbies in the world just to accommodate a few people that are trying to get in illegally as well, I mean, you're just going to need one hell of an argument.
And it's not as if people are going around insisting that the Royal Navy should intervene to stop the scourge of golfers. Although, maybe they should.
Do you see what I mean? This is where her moral compass is. Anyone rich, bad. Anyone, looking poor and looking brown, good. That's her entire worldview. And, she's saying now maybe they should get the Navy, which what the Navy would have to do with a golf course on London, I don't know anyway. But I think her point was supposed to be that maybe we should, at gunpoint, get rid of rich golfers. I mean, honestly, the Monday socialists they need to get their head out their arse.
It's certainly true that there's a housing crisis in this country, but that's not because every single habitable building is literally full to the brim with people.
Oh my god, is she going to go on about Russian and Chinese businessmen? Is she going to go on about all the empty housing in London that's owned by foreigners? Foreigners that have no intention of actually living there, just have it because it's a good and valuable asset to have and to invest their money in.
According to official data, housing supply has outstripped housing formation every year since 1996.
Hey, that's about the same year that Tony Blair started opening up the borders.
The problem isn't that there physically isn't enough housing out there. It's that the cost of renting or buying is prohibitively high, and there's not enough actually affordable housing being built.
Correct, but I think your thought process in all this is going to be very wrong yet again.
So that's not a crisis of population. It's a crisis of profiteering.
Oh, she's so close.
Good journalism isn't just about pointing and gawping.
Oh my lord, she moved on. Since she moved on, I am going to point out that she kind of gets the basics of economics, you know, with the supply and demand thing, and then has no idea where to go from there. Basically, the whole housing crisis argument, both sides are true. We don't have enough affordable housing. There's many reasons for that. I mean, there's NIMBYism. I mean, this channel really hates NIMBYism. I know a few people that like it, but this channel is not a supporter of it. And I don't even mind, like, national parks. National parks, don't build on them. That's fine. Greenbelts, I really care less about. I live on a greenbelt, and honestly, I wouldn't care if there was more housing built around, because National Trust owns all the places I like to visit in nature anyway. And I know people that have been complaining that disused car parks are being built on. Car parks that are barely used. And obviously, because you can't build houses or flats on this car park, you can't have more affordable housing about. But that's the main problem in the north, I'd say. In the south, you've got a problem with foreign investors, as I said before. Chinese, Russians, businessmen. They put all their money into housing in that area, making a little bubble in London, which will hopefully burst one day, but I can't see it happening soon. And I am totally for having a law that says you have to be a British citizen to be able to purchase land. Otherwise, you'll be stuck with renting. I think that single move could probably help the housing crisis quite a bit. But then she just completely dismisses the demand side. No, you can't dismiss 1 million more people needing housing every 3 years. And given that planning laws are always pretty tight even before 1996, it makes sense that the thing that changed in 1996 and beyond was the fact that Tony Blair opened the borders and we never closed them. It's this whole correlation thing. Doesn't mean causation, but it's a hell of a lot better than the evidence you've put forward. Anyway, let's finish this off.
It's about providing essential context. Because when reporters don't do that, they end up playing into the hands of bad faith actors like Nigel Farage.
That is peak bloody irony. As I've said before, go through Nigel Farage's timeline. He gives you as much context as possible. He has video evidence. He doesn't, as far as I'm aware, he doesn't cut it down to suit his agenda. Yet from everything I've shown in this video, we can see that's exactly what Ash Sarkar does. So don't try and give me this shit that right-wing actors and Nigel Farage are the only people on earth who devoid videos of context, etc. Because we have seen you do that, and we see you only give partial truths to suit your narrative. And I'm not saying the right wing doesn't do that, but bloody hell, you have to do a better job at pointing that out, love. Anyway, she's pissed me off enough. That's all I had for you today. So, as usual, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.